My name is Victoria Villasenor, and today I'm going to be talking about sexism in professional tennis. My main claim being that referees are more critical of women in tennis than they are of men. Some background, so all of you I think hopefully know what the game of tennis is. Secondly, there are the duties of a referee in tennis. So there are 4 different types of referee in tennis. There are line umpires who are strictly there on the floor to call line wherever the ball bounces, to call it in or out. The chair ump, who you see sitting on the very tall chair that calls out the score, manages the players and enforces the rules of tennis. There's a court supervisor who keeps track of tournaments, like the courts at the tournaments, and enforces the rules of tennis and the code of behavior. And then the main referee who does all of those things in the spirit of fairness, quote unquote. And that's according to tennis.com. So my 3 main points that I'm going to be making, or my secondary claims I'm going to be making, are that the dress code for women is enforced more strictly than it is for men, that the rules of tennis etiquette are inconsistent, and the women are penalized more heavily than men. So my first point being that the dress code for women is enforced more strictly than it is for men. So this comes up with like the Serena Williams in the recent, in the French Open and in the US Open. The French Open was where the main controversy came up with the dress code and her catsuit. So the all-black catsuit that was a form-fitted, one-piece thing came up in controversy. So the French Open initially doesn't have a dress code, unlike its like counterpart Wimbledon, which is they're really big. They have to wear all white. It's very, very proper. The French Open doesn't have any specific dress code. However, after Serena played in her catsuit, the president, Bernard Guidicelli, called for that to change. He said that one must respect the game and the place, and called out her catsuit specifically, saying that it wasn't part of the attire. In another case, at the U.S. Open, Alizé Cornet was called out by the chair ump for changing her shirt after she realized it was on backwards. Meanwhile, Rafael Nadal, during the same tournament, was seen sitting shirtless in and out of matches and was given no warning or anything. My second point, the rules of etiquette in tennis are inconsistent. During the 2018 US Open, Serena Williams and the chair umpire, Carlos Ramos, had a lot of back and forth as he gave her 3 different violations, one being a warning regarding coaching, which he was alluding to her cheating, a second point for breaking her racket, and then a third game penalty for the verbal abuse after she called him a thief. And then, so that was Serena's, her rules of etiquette weren't applied the same. With men in the same thing, we've seen different outbursts for men, so all the way back into the 80s, which isn't that long, but it's still long, John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors were very, very prominent, very known for their outbursts. In more recent times, however, we have Roger Federer in 2009 at the U.S. Open who explicitly argued with a coach, or argued with the chair. And then most recently in the 2016 Cincinnati Masters, Andy Murray kicked a tennis ball out of frustration at one of the umpires' heads. Which leads me to my third point of penalization for that. So for Williams, for her violations, it came out to a total of $17,000 for her 3 code violations, along with the loss of a point and the loss of a game. Alongside the financial payment, she did have to go through a lot of controversy and debate. You know, being the center point of people's just rude comments and slander all over the internet. In an interview with James Blake, who is a retired tennis player that retired in 2013, addressed the calls against Williams and said, "I will admit I have said worse and not gotten penalized, and I've also been given a soft warning by the ump where they tell you to knock it off, or I will have to give you a violation." He should have at least given her that courtesy. In another instance, Andy Murray, after his incident of kicking a ball at an umpire, was given no penalty at all and went on to win his match at the Cincinnati Masters. He also went on an explicit rant at the Wimbledon Championships, which are known for having a stricter policy. Again, there was no fine, and he went to win the whole championship in 2016. In conclusion, the referees in professional tennis are more critical of women than they are of men, as expressed in the inconsistent dress codes, the inconsistent application of the rules of etiquette, and the difference in penalties between men and women. Thank you. Those are
All right, Victoria, the proposition's very clear. There's a good layout of the secondary claims. They're phrased as declarative sentences. The controversy is relatively recent, so we understand why there's a dispute that's going on here. You signpost the secondary points as you get to each one of those things, and you again repeat them as declarative sentences, which I think is appropriate. For the most part, you do explain what was going on in various contexts. I do think there might be a little bit more explanation about why some of the rules exist, or how what the process is for deciding them. Is it entirely up to the referee? Is there an appellate process? Is it typical for people to challenge these comments on a regular basis? Is there a limit to what kind of challenge they could do? I think maybe a little bit more context would help. People who maybe watch tennis all the time would understand those things, but those folks who are not familiar with it might miss they're going to be asking, well, anytime you're mouthing off to the referee, that's a potential problem. And I don't know, we have other sports where that gets compared to, and there are penalties in those contexts, and I think maybe a few comparisons there might have helped people see the things that you're talking about a little bit more. But you've got a bunch of examples that you point to, which I thought that you did a good job citing. You've got a piece or two of expert testimony that adds a little bit of credibility to your argument. You cite pretty much the straightforward factual data about events that took place. And for the most part, you're providing sources, although some of the factual data doesn't get those kinds of sources. I don't doubt that that's accurate and true. Generally, you do a good job speaking to the audience, and I think your argument was relatively clear. All right, thank you.